Hey, welcome to Bits and Bytes from Digital Dee. I'm Diane Kesler with Maxine, and we're here to provide you with smaller segments of video recordings that are going to assist you in your MuleSoft journey. Thanks for joining. So for a quick introduction of myself, for those of you who don't know me, I am a MuleSoft instructor. I have been very active in the MuleSoft community at several of the meetups, even when I first got started with MuleSoft. So I encourage those of you who have not checked out the MuleSoft community to go to this hyperlink. I'll put all of these links in the comments below, but go to the MuleSoft.com community, and you can see where you can attend a MuleSoft meetup. There are several across the world where you can participate in those, and many of them are remote. We'll also have several mentors as well as MuleSoft ambassadors like myself who are very willing to help you on your MuleSoft journey. So that has been and continues to be a very big part of my MuleSoft career. As I progressed along, I'm also have been active in the MuleSoft exam development and also fine-tuning some of the curriculum. So it really is very exciting to be a part of all that. And just recently, I became CEO of Integration Quest, a new company. But now on to some of our details that we are going to be discussing in our video. Today's video is about Anypoint Studio Installation. Now, many of you are thinking, yeah, I see where the download is. I can download that just fine. However, when you get into Studio itself, you realize that there are problems. You might have missing libraries or deployments fail for nefarious reasons, or no database module, or your permissions are read-only. So these are all things that, as a new developer and working with Anypoint Studio, they can really be a challenge to you. And we don't want that. We want everything to go smoothly. So this video is intended for new muleys. So welcome our new muleys. We appreciate you. I was there once as well, and I empathize with you for getting started and learning how to get Studio installed. Now, importantly, we do have some system requirements for your computer systems. Studio will run on 8 gigabytes of RAM. However, it will be very slow. And if you are in a class or intended to be in a MuleSoft class, that you will be very delayed on your deployments as you're going through that class. If you're in a work environment or even in the self-paced course, it's going to take a lot longer. Our recommendation, my personal recommendation, is 16 gigabytes of RAM. Now my desktop is 32, and I'm telling you, it's jam up when it deploys in Studio. So if the higher the RAM, the better off you're going to be. And if you are working for someone and they're either setting you up a VM or a laptop to be provided for you, be sure to let them know that you do need to at least have 16 gigabytes of RAM. Now, this video is primarily focused on the very latest version of Studio, which is 7.12. It does cover and will also be applicable to down to version 7.9. However, there are earlier versions of Studio that will require you to take a look at those instructions, as they will be different. So check out there are instructions on the docs.mulesoft.com, and if you have never been to this site before, again, all of these hyperlinks are going to be listed below. This is a great place to come to locate the very latest version of Studio, and you can see the requirements based on the present version, the latest version. Now, if you're on a contract or working for a company that is using maybe Mule 3, then you will have to refer to the instructions for that installation, and it will be based on the runtime. So as we see, the runtime versions are at 4. That would be considered to be Mule 4. But if we see the runtime versions in the 3s, 3.9 is the most stable released version of a Mule 3 runtime. And so you will need to, say, for example, click on this if you're looking for a particular version of Studio to run in Mule 3. If you have requests for that, ping me. I can provide you with some tips on installing any previous versions and where you can find them. These downloads for previous versions of Studio can be acquired through your licensing. There is a particular portal that you can go to based on your license. Okay, so we will take a look at our next step, which would be actually downloading Studio. So we'll start off with downloading, clicking to a download site. There's a couple ways you can get to it. One that goes directly to it is MuleSoft.com LPDL Studio. So if we go to this, if you already are associated and there's cookies associated with a login, you're going to see where it's going to offer you the operating system, and you can click directly into the download from there. But just to show you the difference, if you've not set up an account, then you'll see more of a form to fill out. Either way, you will want to go ahead and fill in the details so that you will be able to get that download. And what's going to happen is it's going to automatically start downloading for you once you click this download button. Once the download begins, you're going to receive a page that says, "Thank you for downloading Anypoint Studio." And you will see the instructions listed below that are unique for the operating system you chose. So depending on whether you chose Windows, the Mac OS, or Linux, you're going to see those instructions detailed. The download will continue, and once it has completed, then we'll proceed to the next step. The next step is where we will talk about the detailed instructions per 2 of the 3 choices of the operating systems. The first one we'll talk about will be Windows. With the Windows OS, what I recommend you do is create a new folder at the root of C. Make it a very short name, as in the example here, it is Mule. Then I want you to copy that download file into the Mule folder that you just created and rename it. The goal here is to shorten the download name. Notice the download name structure is Anypoint, the version number, and the operating system identified. Well, we want to shorten that name because in Windows, the error that occurs most often is the file path name is too long. And you'll receive errors, and if you click continue to proceed forward anyway, this is where you're going to have missing libraries and various problems within Studio. So rename that file, put it at the root of C. This is very important for you to do. Once you have done that, you can unzip the file into that new folder and watch it to make sure that you don't have any errors. Sometimes we get busy and we overlook it and aren't paying attention and think everything worked just fine, when you really want to watch to make sure that there aren't any errors. Now, once that has completed and it's unzipped, you will notice that there's an executable file here, anypointstudio.exe. And we'll take that, right-click that, create a desktop icon so that you have a shortcut there, and then go ahead and click and launch Studio. Now, I'll continue with the instructions of that first launch of Studio in the next slide. So let's now go back to the instructions for a Mac. You'll unzip that file where it sits in your download folder. Once it has downloaded, you're going to drag and drop the Anypoint Studio icon into your Applications folder. So you'll click that, drag it over, and then again, you can launch Anypoint Studio directly from your Applications folder. Okay. Now, as we get into the launch itself, we're going to be the first pop-up that you're going to see when it begins to launch is an option for your workspace. Now, I recommend to rename this workspace into something meaningful to you. I organize my various projects and my various work by the workspaces. There have been times that a workspace can become corrupted. And if you're using one workspace for everything, you're going to have problems. I highly recommend that you go ahead and define your workspace and name it something that's meaningful for what you're working on. As you can see, I've even pushed mine over onto my D drive. So you can do that. Okay. Once your workspace has been defined and you launch, then the very first studio installation is going to really matter. And this again is where we have some missing modules. There are modules that are loaded by default. And if this for some reason gets interrupted, or you start clicking before it's completed, or there's some kind of an error that you may have overlooked there, that is where you're going to see some additional studio installation problems. So just allow it, especially that very first time, to complete initializing and loading all of the modules needed. You'll see this disappear. Watch this status in the bottom right-hand side. So next we're going to talk about validating our studio installation. We've gotten that far. Now we're going to go ahead and create a Mule project. So what I'd like for you to do is go ahead and click Create a Mule Project. Name it what you would like. In our example, we're using Hello World. And then click Finish. From here, Studio will take just a few minutes to scaffold and set up your project. And once it does, then you're going to see in the palettes to verify. And when I'll show you, here is Studio that is set up and launched for this Hello World. The palette area that I'm referring to is in the upper right of Studio. And then we're going to click on Add Modules. And once you click on Add Modules, we are going to be looking for this database module. So as we're looking for the database module, so again, click on Add Modules. Look for this database module. That's the one that usually is not present when there are errors within the Studio installation. Okay, and any of my previous students can attest to this. When there's a problem, that is missing. Now, there are some workarounds, but generally speaking, when that one's missing, there might be some others, and there are errors within Studio itself as we are working on it. So pay close attention to that. Now, in the event that it exists, you're good. You can proceed. If not, then you have to restart the download, do the unzip, start completely from there. So you do need to back up and redo it again. Something went wrong in that process. Sometimes it's firewall rules. Sometimes it is an error that you were, missed and were not able to catch that error. File paths, as I said, the file path's too long in the Windows systems. Whatever the case may be, back up and do it again. If you still are finding errors with this, submit a ticket through the help.mulesoft.com so that we can find out what might be going on and assist you further, or post in the comments here. But the goal is that it is there and it does work. So let's go on the happy path. Let's move forward with the happy path, and we will go ahead and create a simple application. So I will walk you through on the slide, and then I'll also show you by way of a demo. So first, we're going to bring an HTTP listener into the palette. When you just release that, it will automatically create the flow for you as well. Our path name we're going to use is /Hello World. And then we're going to click this green plus. The green plus is going to allow us to set the global configurations for the HTTP listener. And by default, we're going to accept everything as it is and just click OK. And now for our demo. Now, when we first looked at add modules, we were looking for that database right here. So you are still in that mode. Now let's click on favorites. And if we see here in favorites, we can see some of the most popular processors that are used, and there is a way to add to that. You can add more to them so that when you click on favorites, you have more available here. But for our demo, we're going to select this listener. So it is a listener, HTTP. We're going to bring it over into the canvas and release it. It will automatically create a new flow for you. So we're going to come down and configure the path. So go ahead and position your cursor in that path. We're going to do /hello world. And then for the connector configuration, what this is going to do is it's going to create a global configuration for this HTTP listener. So we're going to go to the far right and click on the green plus. And when you do, you see the window pop up for the global elements property for that HTTP listener. And it's all set by default. We really don't need to change anything here for right now. There are many things you can do with this, but for right now, we're just going to go ahead and click OK. And then we shall save or commit. You can commit by clicking in your canvas, or you can use the save on the far right. Now our next step is to add to this. So we're going to create our application. The next step is to add a set payload. And this set payload, we're going to set the value to hello world. As you can see, then we will run the application, and I'll give you a demo on that. We should see it deploy and get an indicator in our console that it has deployed. And then we're going to get Advanced REST Client set up to where we're calling that localhost 8081 and with the endpoint of hello world. So there is Advanced REST Client. So if you do not have Advanced REST Client installed, please go ahead and go to the download. Again, you'll find that URL listed in the down below, in the comments down below, and we should be able to see our response come back from setting our payload. So back into Studio, let's go ahead and get a set payload and bring it on over. And notice by default, it is set up to bring us the payload value, but we're going to go ahead and change this over to a single quote, hello world, for our comment. Again, saving or committing those changes to save. And then we will position our cursor to where we're clicking in the canvas area. This is one of the ways to run your program. Right click and you'll see the option to run project hello world. The very first option is the one we're going to click here. So that is how you run your application. And it should deploy very quickly if you have 32 gigabytes of RAM. If not, then it might take you a little longer, but you can see as it is deploying, and I like to point this out, I'm going to grab this and go back up. Notice that an actual Mule runtime is running on your system. Now, where I see a lot of errors come from is, sometimes it's again, if you do not have Anypoint Studio in a folder that is the right permissions for you, then it could have problems with your permissions. So you do want to check that as well. And that's why the instructions are so detailed in regards to that. So once you see at the very bottom of your logs deployed, so the domain level is confirming deployment, application level confirming deployment, deployed. We know our application is in a running mode. Everything looks good. So we're going to go ahead and get Advanced REST Client. And I already have the URL set up for us to run this. I did test it previously. Always a good idea before you record something. Let's go ahead and send in this request. And we do get the response back, hello world. We get a 200 response. So everything looks good here. Number one, not only have you been able to deploy your application, but all of the modules are showing that we were looking for. and everything is successful. You're now ready to start, whether it's a private class, whether it's instructor-led class, or you're doing a self-study or work, whatever the case may be. These are the various validations that we look for to make sure that everything is running as it should. So congratulations! You have conquered Studio. And I know sometimes it's the little things that can be challenging, but do know that we understand because we've been there. Support works heavily on trying to resolve any issues that we might be having in Studio. But should you have things that you cannot resolve, reach out to us so that we can assist you. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video to be very helpful. And those of us in the MuleSoft community, ambassadors, as well as mentors, we're very eager to help you succeed. So know that you're not alone. We're here to help you. And do let us know your thoughts. Write it in the comments down below in this video, or any requests of topics that you'd like to see us cover. Thanks so much and have a great day.